This media serves as a public announcement and an access to information request from me, a teacher employed by the Ministry of Education and deployed at one of the largest primary schools in St. James. The intended recipient of this media is the government of Jamaica, headed by Mr. Andrew Holness, the Ministry of Education, headed by Ms. Favour Williams, to Dr. Cassan Thorpe, Chief Education Officer, to the school board of the school to which I am deployed, to the administrative and academic staff at that school, to the parents and students as well, and to all of Jamaica and the world at large, and with specific directive to the British monarch, an entity who sanctioned the transatlantic slave trade and slavery in all of its colonies, and the entity that is still in charge of Jamaica's parliament. I am not here to project any disrespect. I want to extend maximum respect to all the parties to which I may make reference in this media, and by extension, I am requesting the same level of respect. Now, Mr. Andrew Holness once said in the media in Jamaica that he is not certain and he can't understand why Jamaicans do not trust the government. Well, I will say to you, Mr. Holness, this case in point may be one of the reasons that will answer your question. Please pay attention as I continue. One reason, Mr. Holness, may be because the people feel like you, Andrew Holness, and the government, you are using them as political tools. Mr. Holness says that all the measures put in place by the Disaster Risk Management Act are to protect Jamaica and Jamaicans, to save lives. Now I watched as you, Mr. Holness, and your government closed schools and almost all other businesses in an effort to, as you said, flatten the curve and protect the public health infrastructure in Jamaica from being overwhelmed by COVID-19 cases. I heard you say you are paying attention to the most current information and the science available to guide in all decisions you make as we navigate through this pandemic. I then heard Mr. Andrew Holness in as early as November of 2021 saying that he will not lock back schools. He made no consideration in this statement about the possible developments and situations that could arise as a result of the actual COVID-19 virus, the reason why we were changing all of the normal protocol rules and laws in Jamaica. Now to me, it sounded like a reply from Mr. Holness that was to please the citizens of Jamaica, or the parents rather. You know, the ones who were asking for the government to reopen maybe just schools, but maybe the people of Jamaica were saying reopen the entire country and do away with the Disaster Risk Management Act. But at the least, you heard a cry of the citizens asking for you to reopen schools for face-to-face learning. Now, for those who don't understand, I want you to understand that that is the primary function of a government. A government's decision to listen to the desires of the people in a country is the most basic political responsibility that a government has. Now, by doing so, a government, which is by following the cries of the people, listening to what the people want and giving them their desires, governments gain political traction and favor among the masses. Now, do understand, Mr. Holness, that I am saying here, all I am looking at are your sequence of actions. Now, I am also looking at the facts, the science. Remember, you said that we would pay attention to the science in making our decisions. Now, the data released by the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, the entity that you said you were listening to for information to guide your decision as we navigate this pandemic. Well, yes, that same entity. The data from the CDC released yesterday, December 30th, 2021, is that COVID-19 cases are on the rise all over the world. America, in particular, is experiencing a wave of new infections. The data seems to indicate that the most recent strain of concern, the Omicron, is apparently more transmissible. And though it may not necessarily be more dangerous to the persons who it would impact, it seems to be affecting more children than any other strain. Hospital admissions yesterday have shot up by as much as 4%. 170,000 children tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday, the 30th of December, 2021. And while all of this is going on, the Ministry of Education in Jamaica is sending around a document to school administrators to give orders and instructions to teachers to return to face-to-face classes. First of all, I want to say to Mr. Holness that the science of reaction and response has to be more dynamic than a decision made in November about whatever possibility you would find in December. So my personal impression of the situation, Mr. Holness, is that your determination to resume face-to-face classes on January 3rd is more of a political decision than an act in the interest of the nation's health or its children's health. Though I cannot prove this to be a fact or tell you, Mr. Prime Minister, what to do, I have some issues with the steamrolling that I see is being done in the education system in order to resume the face-to-face classes on this January 3rd deadline that you have put upon yourselves and the nation. And I, a classroom teacher, want some information from the necessary stakeholders so that I can make an informed decision about my future and my employment status at the Ministry of Education, by the government, at the plant that I am currently employed. Now, with regards to the document circulated to all government schools dated December 29th, 21 from Dr. Cathanthrope, I am doing my best to pronounce that last name. It is General Schools Bulletin. Attention, regional directors, school board chairmen, and principals of all public and private educational institutions. Subject: Easter term school resumption, January 3rd, 2022. Dear colleagues, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, MOEYI, wishes to advise our stakeholders that the second term of the 2021-2022 academic year will commence for formal classes on January 3rd, 2022. As of this date, We will also resume face-to-face instruction in all pre-primary, primary, and secondary level institutions for all students. As a means of ensuring system equity, remote learning opportunities will continue to be available and include the online and computer-aided learning, audiovisual learning, and learning kits. Large primary schools and high schools must use the blended and/or the rational schedule given their capacity and student enrollment. However, before face-to-face instructions can be offered, school administrators are required to 1. Obtain a satisfactory institutional health inspection and Govid19 compliant approval report from the Ministry of Health and Wellness for the 2021-2022 academic year. See Bulletin 167 for guidance on how to proceed with the re-inspection. 2. Engage parents in consultation to aid their preparation for face-to-face learning. Consultation can be done virtually or in small groups as per the guidelines of the Disaster Risk Management Act. Submit to the regional office a copy of the satisfactory health report from the Ministry of Health and Wellness and a letter signed by the board chairman indicating the extent of the parent consultation and the start date for face-to-face engagement. The letter should also outline the schedule for face-to-face learning included in the approach to be used, whole day or rational. Where the COVID-19 protocols allow, all the students may be accommodated daily. However, where this is not possible, please ensure that each year group is given at least 2 days of face-to-face learning each week. Resensitize all key stakeholders about the protocols to be observed and reactivate all systems to ensure the safe operations of the school. Once the health conditions are met, the reorientation and administrative activities attendant to the reopening of the schools must be completed by January 7, 2022. Every effort must be made to capitalize on contact time to address the learning loss. Smooth operation. Pursuant to the foregoing, the regional director, in consultation with the principal, the Planning and Development Division and Schools Operation and Improvement Services Branch, will provide written approval for the commencement of face-to-face instruction. The region will also provide monitoring support as is customary. School administrators are expected to review the operational budget and reallocate the resources to ensure the operational needs of the school are met. Organize for learning within the available staffing resource and submit to the regional office the data set showing the student vaccination rate, and that's for secondary schools only. Reporting for duty. All staff are expected to be at work as guided by their deployment schedule. All individuals working in the school environment are expected to be vaccinated, given the availability of COVID vaccines and the special arrangements that have been made to accommodate our school staff. Therefore, those who work in the school environment are expected to be present for work once the students are scheduled to be in the physical environment for classes and as guided by the staff deployment schedule. Persons with comorbidities are encouraged to get vaccinated and observe the COVID-19 protocols as they carry out their daily duties on the school compound. Vendors at or near schools. Within the context of the resumption of face-to-face teaching and learning, those vendors who operate at or in close proximity to the schools and are selling and interacting with students are strongly recommended and encouraged to get vaccinated at one of the many vaccination sites. School administrators are expected to be strategic in the management of the school vending arrangements and in reminding students and all parties of the necessity of mask wearing, physical distancing, and hand washing in these institutions. Education in emergency reminders. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information's Education in Emergency Manuals and Guidelines outline all the procedures that must be followed to ensure that our students and all who work in the school environment are safe while engaging in teaching and learning. We encourage our school boards, school administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, and students to read and reread the Education in Emergency Manuals and Guidelines. Reminders of physical spacing and the actions to be taken adopted from UNICEF. Here are they. Maintain a distance of at least 1 meter between everyone present at the school. Increase desk spacing at least 1 meter between desks. Stagger recess breaks and lunch breaks. If difficult, one alternative is to have lunch at the desk. Limit the mixing of classes for school and after-school activities. For example, students in a class will stay in one classroom throughout the day, while teachers move between classrooms. Or classes could use different entrances if available, or establish an order for each class to enter and leave the building or classroom. Stagger the school day to vary the start and end times or use a rational schedule to avoid having all the students and teachers together at once where there is a space challenge. Advise against crowding during school pickup or daycare, and if possible, avoid pickup by older family or community members, that is grandparents, the older set that we're protecting. Arrange school pickup and drop-off times differently according to age group to reduce any large gathering of children at the given time. Use signs, ground markings, tape, barriers, and other means to maintain a 1 meter distance in queues around entrances. Discuss how to manage physical education and sports lessons. Move lessons outdoor or ventilate rooms as much as possible. Encourage students not to gather and socialize in big groups upon leaving school grounds. Please see the attached list of 856 Ministry of Health and Wellness compliant schools for your attention. Limiting the spread of the COVID-19 virus is everyone's responsibility. We continue to encourage our school leaders, teachers, support staff, parents, and students to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The weight of evidence is that COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective tools for preventing severe illness and death from COVID-19. For additional information and queries, please contact the regional office or your assigned education officer. Now, with the nation abreast as to the information in the document, I will proceed with my request for information from this government. Now, I want the nation to realize that no provision was made for a teacher who is unvaccinated in this document. I want the nation to realize that with significantly more than half of Jamaica still unvaccinated, with all the COVID-19 vaccines that are available, clearly, most of Jamaica do not want to be vaccinated. Hence, the education system and all its stakeholders have a responsibility to provide for those Jamaicans. I am one of those Jamaicans that do not wish to be vaccinated. I also represent the sect of teachers who do not wish to be vaccinated. No provisions were made for us. Now, Mr. Holness, I want you and all the other stakeholders to realize that we still have to pay taxes. You cannot relinquish our rights while we are still obligated by law to contribute to the system. We do not wish to be vaccinated, and we want to see clear provisions being made by your government to provide a space to respect our decision. Mr. Holness, as a teacher in one of the institutions in Jamaica who do not wish to be vaccinated, I have a range of questions that I would like to present to you with regards to my employment status and future at the school to which I am deployed. May I go start by reminding everyone that when slavery was being abolished, when the British Parliament were ending the system of slavery, they had to compensate all of the plantation owners who owned plantations in any of their colonies for the fact that they would be ending a business. They would be legally setting up a framework to stop a business that many persons, many free persons were allowed to operate for many years. Now, with that in mind, I want to say to this government, this Jamaica government, that their system, this system, legal, educational, constitutional, all of this system sold me education. It was not free. I had to pay my way to my degree. Now, with the selling of education, I was assured a job because I would be qualified. So once I got a job or whatever, which I already did, and was employed by the Ministry of Education, outside of the termination principles or protocols established in the Education Code of Regulation, I was guaranteed my job. I was guaranteed the opportunity to continue serving in my job. Now, this government went and changed the rules or the laws of the country. They used this Disaster Risk Management Act as the key law that is changing the law or mode of operation in the country. Now, I am saying if it is a disaster, I don't think anybody should be required to follow the normal framework of their contract. However, I don't think because of a disaster, the government should be allowed to breach the contract that they would have formed with me. And I will not accept it because it was not done to the white slave owners. So as a black descendant of a king that was perhaps made a slave, I am here to say I will not be enslaved, nor will I allow any organization, system, or government to change, breach, or otherwise nullify a contract that they entered with me. As a free man, I reserve the right to all freedoms guaranteed to all free people on this earth. So I want to say to all teachers, I do understand your situation. I want to say to the world that I am not trying to speak for all teachers in the world. I am primarily speaking for myself. However, I know that most of the teachers in Jamaica are financially shackled by loans or mortgages with institutions because that is the system that they were sold. Now, I did not bow to this system. I don't owe any. Well, I owe one loan on this car that the trailer man destroyed my car that I paid cash for. So I had to make another arrangement with a bank. I used some money that I have there as collateral for them to give me this car. And then I agreed with the bank to pay them a portion of my salary every month to finish paying it off. That's the only debt that I owe on this earth. So I think based on the financial constraints that my co-workers are operating under, I want to say this loudly, as I said, for myself, but also on their behalf. You should not be allowed to do this. you as a government that created this system, you also created a system in the public schools of Jamaica where you hide behind the representatives of the community that you put together to call the school board. Now, it usually comprises of a minister of religion at the top, and you have different stakeholders, one from the parent, one from the community, one from the academic staff, one from the administrative staff at the school, and maybe some other individuals. As I said, you created this system so that you can legally hide behind this group of people to have them do your dirty work in the world. And people, look, this is what they are doing to the Jamaican teachers right now. Currently, the school boards of Jamaica are telling teachers that they are not mandating that they do. But the document that the ministry says that teachers are supposed to be vaccinated. And they have no statement of provision for a teacher who does not wish to take the COVID poison that they are marketing as a vaccine. I have reservations about it. Fine, it could very well be a vaccine. It could very well be the protection for all the persons threatened by this virus. I welcome all the persons who are threatened by this virus to go take the vaccine. Now, I, a young man in my early 30s of peak physical condition, do not wish to participate in your COVID vaccine trials. I will not accept the COVID concoction that you are calling a vaccine inside of my body. I ask, sir, that all the parties involved listen to me and acknowledge this stance with respect. I am trying to be as respectful as I can be to all of your system based on the operational procedure that you are employing. Now, I am making this public statement for all the parties involved to hear my voice and publicly state an alternative for a teacher such as myself that does not wish to participate in the COVID vaccine trials. Right now, the manufacturers of this vaccine were able to secure a liability waiver from all the governments who are participating in the trials or allowing their citizens to participate in the trials. What the waiver says is that no fault or blame or legal regress can be sought from the vaccine manufacturers of the world for any potential harm that this vaccine may present to an individual that accepts it in their body. Now, unless you remove at least that waiver, I should not be asked to take this vaccine. I should not be forced, and the terms of my employment should not come into question as a result of the decisions that you make, whether in the Disaster Risk Management Act or in any ministry document that you are sending to the region or Region 4 in my case, or any statement of instructions being given by the principals or by extension the school board at the schools which we are operating. I am making this appeal to the Minister of Education, Ms. Favour Williams, to the Prime Minister, Mr. Andrew Holness, to the Governor General, to the British monarch that is still the leader of the structure of government that we are using. I am making this appeal to you. Please stand by your contracts. Please honor your legal obligations. I have a right as a human being to reject any substance being put in my body. I reserve that right. I did not consent to the relinquishing of that right by the government. I am asking you to stand by your agreements, your laws, and do not have me considering my decision or a decision that affects my life or my livelihood while you hide behind the school boards. Come out, Mr. Holness, make a statement. I would like to know, is it a case that I have to resign? I may choose to resign or seeking early retirement, but I need clear, detailed information as to the provisions that will be made or that will be put in place for each of the decisions that I will consider. But don't hide behind the school board and risk me having to go against the instructions of my superior on the plant, all while you are hiding behind them instead of coming out with a clear legal statement for the different options that are being presented to teachers in the world. I say to all the parents and the students that the teachers that will quickly get vaccinated and run to school, they are, in my mind, the epitome of what a slave would be in the pre-emancipation era or in slavery. They are the slaves that would bow to submission. I am not that type of person. I will not be shoved into a decision. I will not be coerced. I am here standing on the International Charter of Human Rights to make this decision as a free human being, to say to the government and all parties involved, stand by your contracts. Stand by your contracts. Don't breach your contracts. Where you want out of a contract, come to me with a legal document of intent so we can consider it as adults. I am not a minor. I am an educated, free human being that can read any of your documents and consider the advancements of the statements that you are putting in these documents. I have written many correspondence to the JTA, the Ministry of Education, and I have received no formal correspondence from any of these entities. The JTA has been collecting teachers' money every month for many years in Jamaica, and yet they are not representing the voice of the teachers that were paying them that do not wish to take this COVID concoction into their body. I am calling on the JTA, make a statement after hearing this piece. Come out, do your best to represent all teachers. And I am awaiting a response before I will be forced to make a decision based on the provisions that you are putting in place for the principals or the school boards or the ministries of education to make, that are all not binding. They are not binding because you are giving them these instructions in a disaster. In a disaster, every life form has a right to react to this disaster in the best way possible to preserve their life. And that is the right of even animals. To run away in a storm, leave the barn, don't stay in the barn and die. And you will not present me with a decision of staying in the barn and dying. Nor will you present me with a decision to just run out of a barn that I invested in building without getting regress from you, Mr. Government. I want all the students of Jamaica to pay attention to what this people, this system, the same people that enslaved our ancestors are the same people coming up with these mandates. and I resist them as I would resist slavery in its form in the pre-colonial era. Do consider all of what I have said in this voice note. Please respond via any protocol, any mode, any medium, and I will consider the information based on the clear representation of who is giving this response. But please, Mr. Holness, Minister of Education, do something quickly to respond to this before conflicting positions come up in the disaster risk management actions with what the principals are telling us teachers to do. Quickly, before Monday, when there's a direct conflict in the instructions being voiced to teachers, speak out and respond to this communication. I thank you.